Short of New Zealand. None today. 0 today, Mark Peard. 0 was the score that we got there, which is good.
0.
COVID.
We'll take 0.
Right.
We will take 0.
But
0
I'd just like
cases.
you to take into account this tremendous tweet above me from this young woman today. Look at that. It says, sure, 0 cases today. Feel good. But you'll remember what happened in the Super Over. Don't you? Don't you? All right?
Ooh. That's a good point.
As well. Of course, May the 4th, cool day. You know it's cool day, Peard.
Of course I do. You tell us.
Of course you do. That's right. Because it's Bartolomeo Cristofori's birthday.
My favourite.
Today. And he was, of course, born in 1655 and played a harpsichord and invented a thing called the piano.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there, happy birthday to him, man.
Yeah.
Shaking your tree.
Yeah. No, we got an interesting show tonight because, of course, Blake Ashford is not with us in person. However, he will be joining us. We did have a quick chat with him before he had to take off and hang out with the lads as they are all over there. The Warriors over in Tamworth, getting ready for the NRL season to get underway. So welcome along to the Daily Debrief. Pretty cool show tonight, Nato. We still we still get to see Ash, and then we get to catch up with your mate, Sir John Kirwan.
Yeah, so we've got this. I kind of had this theory of what we could do because you guys and girls watching, you know, many of these people that we're getting on screen for you. But I thought it'd be kind of cool if we found out a little their other thing. Yes. You know how like people talk about things like, oh, you know, Richie McCaw, I met him. He was nice. He was very serious. And then he started talking about gliders and flying, and away he went. So John Kirwan on with us in a few minutes' time, and he's going to talk to us about a few of his passions. I think we can take the conversation anywhere. He's a good chat. He likes wine. He likes Italy, and he's got this amazing talent for making long meats.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Long meats.
For making long meats, and they're incredible too. So we'll talk about that and find out about that. But this afternoon, we fired up the record machine. Blake Ashford was with us live at the time from Tamworth, where the Warriors are. So let's roll it out here. Let's show the people what's going on in Straya. Okay, everybody. Well, here we are on May the 4th, and as the world is rocked and still really recovering from the fact that I'm going to try and say his name right, Peard. Thor Bjornsson, the wall, the mountain, the big guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did
501 kilos, 501 kilograms. The world is recovering from that, and then we recover to the fact, like, let's all break our bubble and go around to Blake's house, and we get there, and there's this sign on the door, gone to Australia. Here he is, live. You're in Tamworth, mate. Music capital of New South Wales.
Yeah, Tamworth, buddy. Couple Cowboys.
Yeah. So tell us what it was like when you landed. Is there a town that you have in mind, New Zealand, that we can all picture and go, that's what's going on?
To be honest, we haven't seen much of Tamworth. I can't remember going to Tamworth. But New Zealand, I don't know. What is it, Hobbiton? Is that play, Hobbit? I don't know, man. I don't know. I just, that's probably the only town that I know, so I just tossed it up.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too much in New Zealand. Now, when we landed, it was crazy when we landed. As soon as we landed, it was like we were rock stars. There was media, like, shoulder by shoulder. It's funny how they say, you know, keep your social distancing, but I don't think anyone in the media gets sick, apparently, because they weren't social distancing. But, yeah, a bit of rock stars coming out.
Can you blame them, though, considering the saviours of all of the NRL had just arrived? Like, of course they're excited.
And I know, I suppose so. They were, especially at Tamworth as well. When we were driving, we had two buses, and as we were going, there was people on the side of the road waving and things like that.
Really?
It sort of made me feel like I meant something again.
That's
so
great.
Yeah.
They were like, there's some people from the outside, They're coming to Tamworth.
So do you feel new and refreshed? Because let's start in the fact that you've got no facial hair now and you've had a haircut. How did you get the haircut? How did you keep social distancing when you got your haircut? And B, how does it feel to be nice and fresh?
Well, I actually got the haircut before I left. So as we've spoken before, I think with Sean Johnson, I don't like going to the barbers to waste $20 for my haircut that grows probably in a week. So the wife sort of hooked it up to the side. You know, seen the other. Yeah, if you've seen the Guile the other night. Yeah, Dolph Lundgren, Guile. Yeah, it was all trying to get that back, and I haven't been this shaven in probably about 10 years, and I know why, because it brings out all the badness in my face.
I was going to say, now I'm going to ask you for ID, because this young rookie that's come along. So, bro, so tell us this. So you went over there with the Warriors.
Yep.
Like, and everyone saw the picture of little Tyker getting a cuddle from Adam before he left, and that was quite sad and stuff. So, what was it a solemn feeling, or like we're on our way to an adventure? Like, what was the feeling you picked up from the guys?
To be honest, everyone was a bit unknown. Like still till today, you don't know whether if the borders are going to relax, the boys can come home. So at the moment, their minds are set on 5 months, not seeing their kids, their family, their wives, being in hotels out of their backpacks for 5 months. So it was pretty daunting for them to sort of jump on the plane, and it's a massive step for those boys, considering now all Queensland and everyone's released their borders, so those teams can come and fly in and fly out and go home. But, it was pretty sad seeing that some of those images. I only go for 5 weeks, and obviously that's not long enough to get your wife to cry for you, but must have been just me.
The other sad bit I saw was that Adam Blair dropped his phone when he was getting out of the plane and dropped it on the tarmac. That's terrible.
I haven't seen that.
Imagine they've been there that long for like 25 weeks. You got anything to get online with? No.
Nah, go on.
So what have you been told? Like, what do you know that? What do you know? Like, how are you going about your job? Because you're doing stuff for Sky. Is it
Warriors TV, we should say.
Warriors TV. It's pretty strict at the moment, mate. So we obviously thought we were going to come in and get to go in the boys' rooms and, have some interaction with the boys, a bit of touching and things like that, because we're all in the same bubble. But obviously, you still got to keep the social distancing. Your room we've all got given our own room.
Right.
And that room is sort of your own bubble. So you can't have your mates in your room and things like that. So you can't, hey, mate, I've got a coffee here. You want to come in and have a coffee? Can't do that. So a lot of it's strict. And I'm just waiting to see when the NRL and the government sort of release. Because I've seen today that New Zealand had no new cases. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, good.
Yeah, good. So if they do release cases, if they do get down to where New Zealand is, I can confidently say that I think we'll have some games at Mount Smart later in the year.
Mount Smart? Do you reckon with fans and everything? Do you reckon?
I'm not
sure about fans, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Not with fans. I don't know. I read somewhere yesterday that I think fans. They said there will be a grand final with fans. Yeah. I don't know about the rest of it.
Right.
But I don't know about if we'll have fans at Mount Smart. But I do think that this is all depending on the Australian laws and if the Australian cases go down like New Zealand has. I'm talking maybe in a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months, we might get a couple of games at Mount Smart, hopefully.
You know what? I've always been a fan of a halftime show, even without fans.
Would you still get your job? Will they reinstate you just to pump the crowd, or maybe the announcer or someone?
They do. But you know what? There's still. You know what, mate? I'll do it for free. I'll go down and do a halftime show, absolutely for free, just so that I can feel like I'm employed or doing something with my life.
You'd be like a wwrestler doing a promo with no fans in there and just be cutting promos.
I'm not. That's not below me, mate. I'll do it. Just so I can say to my wife that I'm going out to do some work. Like, oh, good. He's got a job.
We need to track down, what do they call that wrestling league that started up in the quarantine, which is just people doing wrestling promos and calling people out. They never wrestle. That's the new pro wrestling.
Do you reckon Dad Body Steve could get a start?
That's what I mean. Dad Body Steve. You go, well, you can see him get some out of the Warriors boys in that during the week as well, I reckon. I was actually thinking that we might be able to organise, that bubble soccer they do at half time,
yes.
where the people doing that. That's in a COVID bubble, is it not?
Two fans that wouldn't actually be touching or anyway.
No, they're not touching.
We could bring them in from either side of the stadiums. They could meet in balls and just boom, boom. That's good.
How far do you think that someone would fly if a full speed Jason Taumalolo bubble hit their bubble? That could be. I would be there for that.
30
I'll
metres.
Yeah, that would
30
be
metres
epic.
at least in
30
the air.
metres easy.
Oh.
Hey,
What's-
just so I'm guessing this is what I'm taking out of where you're at, Blake. The NRL are being extra cautious right now because they know that they've got the eyes of the world on them right now for any kind of. So they're keeping everyone in their bubbles. You have, however, managed to get Johnny in that bubble with you. So I mean that's a bonus.
Yeah.
Who? Oh yes.
Johnny.
Sorry. I was like, Johnny. Who's Johnny? I got him in.
There's Johnny.
It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be right for me to do a show with no alcohol on the side.
No.
So I had
No, exactly.
a little bit of glass.
Nice.
Mate, I snuck Johnny in, unbeknownst to the NRL and the government.
Yeah.
I think they let it slide, but no, everything at the moment, like I said, is real strict because of what we spoke about last week on the show about the mishaps. If there's one more mishap, I think NRL's done and they won't be the first sport started up. So
I know I'm super excited that you're over there. I'm super excited that the players are all getting ready to play NRL rugby league. I'm really excited for them, and I don't want any stuff ups. So we got to make sure that when we're doing our thing as well, that we don't make any stuff ups. I'm rooting for them. I'm happy for you, man. And we got to work out a way of just you feeding us information whilst you're over there.
Yeah,
we'll do
with
that.
You've got Sir John Kirwan on tonight.
Yes.
Can you just ask him if someone ever calls him like, "Hey John" or something like that, and they don't say "Sir"? Does he like go away peasant? Can you ask him that from me? Like, I'm curious. If I was Sir Blake Ashford, and someone goes, "Oh, hey Blake," I'll go, "That's Sir to you, mate." Like, I just want to know if that's what he does.
Yeah.
I'd be curious. Also about his. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I reckon we'll ask him that, and we'll also ask him where his favourite place to go out is.
Yes, and about his dress sense. His dress sense is bloody amazing.
Yeah,
I don't know who else could pull it off, eh?
Yeah.
Did not know who else could pull it off.
Goat, mate. Goat indeed. All right, buddy, we'll stay safe. Remember, you've got episodes 7 and 8 coming up for the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary tonight, which you'll be able to watch, bro. So that'll be something for you to be able to do without the screaming children and everyone else around you. So enjoy.
Yep. And thanks, boys. I'll try not to drink all my Johnny tonight and keep it for the other shows.
Right,
Okay,
mate.
good on you.
Stay safe.
All right, lads. See you later.
There he is.
We're there. Yes, there he is. Hey,
There he is.
Man,
it's all go. Can you believe that? It's all go. The NRL. Well, is it? What do you reckon, Nate? Are we tempting it here? Like, tempting fate by thinking it's all go?
Yes, I think so. Like I've kind of felt, and I was a bit like saying the other night, it seemed weird that Peter V'landys is trying to stare down this virus, going, "No, it's bullshit now. This is what's going to happen," right? So he had to get it. It's not just the NRL doesn't run the whole country.
No.
And like when you think of it, like they're asking the government to do them a favour on the backs of, look, we're an entertainment thing, we employ a whole lot of people, this is going to be good, please let us do it, right? So I think that they are getting a lot of favour there. And like the amount of just the headache they must have, man. Todd Greenberg must have just been so happy he was out of there when those videos showed up, right? Of Cleary, like dancing and that sort of stuff. He would have been like, "Thank God, I'm not a part of that anymore."
Yeah. I don't know.
Like, it just seems to me, man, they've got to be so careful. And the thing is, Peter, is like you're asking to be given a really special favour, so you've got to act totally over grateful, if you know what I mean. And the bit that worries me is that the Warriors have gone through a terrible time, like we mentioned there about Adam Blair hugging his boy and going. There's the families, obviously, they're not quite sure when they could. Like they've gone into a situation of we're not quite sure what's happening.
Yeah,
which is massive to move yourselves into. So if someone from another club stuffs it up for them, man, I think they just get one outs from the whole Warriors team at least. At least, right? Because this is what they've got to trust now. Like, look at what they've gone through. That's different than I had to stay in my apartment in Cronulla. Like, these dudes have had to fly right across to the other side to make a hell of a movie, though.
Yeah. Oh, to make a great movie, especially if they can run the table on the competition now. And I always have these fascinations with the Warriors. And being a Warriors fan, anyone who has them as well, they can relate to this. But what a great moment for the Warriors to be away from home and to run the table on the rest of the competition. They don't have their home cooking. They don't have the comforts of home. Yeah. They have a whole new appreciation from a whole new fan base who are over there in Tamworth. All of a sudden, this could be their year. I'm just saying. This could be.
I actually wrote down in my little book here. I was trying to think of like, what is it about this, like the journey over and the ragtag bunch. And let's be honest, they weren't rated as being competition winner at the start of the year, right? But now they can come together. If they can bond and get it done, I wrote down, is this more like The Last Dance, the doco series? Is it like The Replacements? That move, I think it had, they might have had Kiefer, I think, as a quarterback.
Yes.
Is it like Major League? Another ragtag bunch of team, that were trying to get there and just trying to get through and make it, and they go through and they end up actually winning their championship series, that one in Cleveland. I hope I didn't spoil anything.
No, I just hope that it's that something good comes out of it for the Warriors, rather than just they are making up the numbers, they lose a few games, it becomes a drawn out weird season, and the Melbourne Storm win. Like I want a better storyline than that.
This bloody better, because there's all sorts of words around about, and this was before the lockdown, right?
Yes.
Before any of this came along, do you know what? There's probably too many clubs, and they're going to have to lose a few, right?
Yes.
And there were various names that bounced around. Now it's like the whole, I don't know if there's too many clubs in Sydney or whatever, and there was even floated the one losing the Warriors. You can't lose the Warriors after this.
No.
You cannot lose the Warriors after this. Like if they dump the Warriors out after this, the NRL's name's got to be mud over here, considering what they've been through, right? So they can't surely. But I'm wondering if that's almost leading to the extra part of, okay, we'll go through all of this. Like it's not just they're hanging on to the season and they want to play. It's I wonder if you're kind of feeling like you've got to help hang on to the club.
Yeah, they're playing for their lives. They're playing for their livelihood. They're playing for the club. They're playing for the fans. Like it's everything to play for. You're right. If they looked at it and they thought, well, if we're going to cut costs and we're going to have to make the NRL a lot more cost efficient, the Warriors don't make sense.
The Warriors
don't make sense in travel terms for the other teams, everything like that. It just doesn't make sense. They sell a lot of merch, but they just don't make a lot of sense. Yeah. I also see that the Greyhounds are getting up and running.
Oh, that's good.
So Greyhounds, NRL, like hand in hand. I've always said that. Two of the most like brothers.
Hey, you know how you can adopt a greyhound after they've run?
Yes.
Right? You can adopt them.
Yes.
So the people around the Prestons, by the way, hello to the Prestons, they're just around the street from us as well. They've adopted one of them, one of the former racing ones. And of course, I looked and I was like, because I think, you think greyhound, you think just real skinny, not much. This thing looks like it's been lifting hard out. Like it looks like it's from Georgia. That's what I imagine all the dogs in Georgia look that muscly.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, would it be, or is that normal for a racing greyhound? If anyone knows about racing greyhounds, let us know. I suppose they'd be musclier, wouldn't they? Most
yeah, they are ripped. I've you remember we had a mutual friend, Mackay Carr. Mackay and Jace, they own Phoebe, they've called it. What's probably called Phoebe while it raced, but they own Phoebe, and Phoebe is ripped to shreds. She's an old retired greyhound, and just chiseled.
And they're big too.
Big chiseled animals, but they're all raring to go. And apparently there's going to be a certain protocols at greyhound racing tracks where you can't just rush in and collect your dog. Like there's certain bubbles that can go in and collect them at certain times, and a whole lot of rules around it. NRL, obviously, the first of the major sports, I guess you could say, looking to get underway. I hear the Phoenix are looking at a start date again, restarted for the A-League. So that would be good for them, considering they're in the top 4 for the first time in a long time I can remember. So things are starting. It feels like, 0 cases today. Warriors flew out and have landed in Australia. Feels like, we'll touch a little bit of wood here, and I do have a wooden desk, that we might be getting a little closer to having some kind of, daylight at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
I mean, it does. And I see that there was actually a proposal from Western Australia that they could host the Premier League. And I'm like, no, get out. That's New Zealand. That was our idea first. We had that one. Cristiano Ronaldo playing on the right wing for Napier City Rovers. We've already had that idea. You can't steal it. Piss off, Australia. We're going to get first. But look, here's the thing. Latrell, so this just came through. Danny Wheeler tweeted this. Thanks, Aiden, for forwarding it through as well. So Latrell Mitchell just got sent home from South's headquarters for COVID-19 testing after displaying cold-like symptoms just days after breaching social distancing and isolation rules. 3 other South players sent home for testing as well.
Eek.
Man, and this is the start. Like, this is it. This was the don't go out of your bubble. You'll be right. No, it's all right, mate. It's my land. I've been there forever. Like I saw Paul Gallen doing the classic, but why should we be held to a higher standard? It's other people have broken stuff. It's like, yeah, fine. But how about you're just not happy with any of your guys doing it? Like you don't have to go, okay, he played rugby league, so I have to stick up for him. But Latrell Mitchell here, if he's gone and absolutely stuffed it all for everyone with these, because if he tests positive, then what do you do with Souths now? Then you've got to put everyone from Souths, because if he was sent home from their headquarters, he walked in there. So if he tests positive, then everyone is out, which means Souths is completely out of this for at least 2 weeks.
We are sitting on a house of cards. Like, it is so easy for this whole thing to tumble over. And wouldn't it just be such Murphy's Law if Latrell Mitchell did test positive and was a part of the headlines and for being out there and flaunting the lockdown rules, and then all of a sudden he did test positive? That would just be Murphy's Law, and things would be... I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. That would so be that NRL. Wouldn't it be typical NRL for that to happen? And our boy Ace to get back on a plane with 3/4 of a bottle of Johnny Walker.
No, that Johnny Walker Black's gonna be fine. Hey, this is great. I've got All Blacks legends texting me at the moment. This is pretty cool. This is your dream as a New Zealand sports fan. So just got a text in from JK. Look, I'll be there in a few minutes, and then just got a text from the fellow that took his jersey, Jeff Wilson. Hang on, I'm just using JK. He'll be with you. He'll be with you in a few minutes. Sorry, man. He'll be with you as well. So this is nice. This is just all growing here as we get in there together. But yeah, man, I think the Latrell Mitchell news is massive news too, and also that. And you can't, like if I want to be one of the politicians that goes out there, or some sort of community leader, and say like, oh, but these guys don't deserve it. Like this here is the first one you go, then you go with Latrell, and I'm thinking like,
remember too, like
the Warriors have done the hugest thing here for you guys. They went over there before, which was massive at the time, and then to come all the way back over here, sit around not being quite sure what to do, but they all stayed in their bubbles and did their stuff. Even Nathaniel Roach, before he's getting on the plane, in the morning. In fact, he didn't go to the airport, right? So in the morning, he's like, I don't feel good. Look, that's massive social responsibility to the rest of the NRL, whereas these guys don't give a shit. Like these guys in Sydney, it's a joke to them.
It's all about reading the room, and not necessarily the room, but society at the time, right? And right now, people are pissed off. People are pissed off they've had to be locked down. People are pissed off they've had to stay home. People are pissed off they've lost their livelihood, their jobs, everything like that. So when you are a part of something like the NRL, and you've got a chance to lock it up, and work hard and actually get your sport up and going and actually play sport and make money, unlike a lot of people in society now who have lost everything due to COVID-19, you take that opportunity. You lock it up and you behave. They've had to lock it up and behave, and we've seen that they haven't done that. And like I say, if this Latrell Mitchell thing turns out to be what we think it might be, there could be this. I mean, that could be it. And if that'll be it. Everything will tumble down. The Warriors will need to come home again, and we're back at square one, and we'll be looking for the Greyhounds for our amusement.
We're doing that. Yeah, you're right. Because, I mean, as much as Paul Gallen might get mad about it, or anybody in NRL 360 or any of that sort of deal, so it's like, that's cool. But the person who decides on this is Australia's Prime Minister, also your border control people, also your Ministry of Health. So those guys, you can't have your comp. You can't have it. And it'll all be bombed out with those guys for stuffing that one up. So.
Hey, well, in New Zealand, though, zero new cases today was such a refreshing thing to hear.
Oh man!
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't realise we'd ever get. I started thinking to myself as every day went on. We've got 2 new cases. We've got 4. We've got 8. We've got and it just kept. It was, and then I was like, man, I'm never going to hear 0. And we heard 0, and I was like, oh wow, 0 new cases.
It was pretty good.
That was such a refreshing thing to hear.
Yeah, I know. So, like, what was I reading about? This means that it shows you what was happening about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, doesn't it? So that's where we are. So hopefully everyone's visit to the beaches and stuff on the weekend.
Haven't missed that up.
Really squished about for us,
yeah.
Hey, man, I've got so I haven't watched my episodes of The Last Dance. I've got them saved.
Yes.
It's become my Monday night thing now. I do this, and then I have a late night as I sit up and watch those. You have watched them. Have I got a treat coming up? What can you tell me that's
now, I have to apologise wholeheartedly. I have been trying to disguise the fact that I haven't had advanced copies sent to me and I haven't watched them. And I was trying to be all like, I'm part of the crowd, but I've lied. And I misread that it was 7 and 8. It's not actually 7 and 8 tonight. It is 5 and 6,
isn't it?
I jumped the gun. So I have to try and remember back what 5 and 6 was about. Have you seen any of their teasers? So we've done the Dennis Rodman saga, haven't we?
Yeah, I saw a tease where it had a skinny Charles Barkley.
Oh yes.
With that, and see, that's the series to me. Like that.
Yeah.
That's the big that's the Big Bulls series to me, because I just moved to Auckland and I was staying at my mate Ari's house, and he'd been living in Arizona. Like, they were big Phoenix Suns fans. So that series where they come out, for starters, it was the best Phoenix Suns jersey ever. That's one of the great NBA jerseys of all time.
Got a couple of
but but you had Charles, you had Kim Johnson, you had Oliver Miller, who the Big O, who actually looked like his nickname, which was pretty amazing. You had Chuck Person. Was it Chuck or Wesley Person? It was one of the Persons. Yeah, with those as well. I just remember that team and thinking, like, oh man, this is beautiful. So I was actually cheering for them to beat the Bulls in that series. So spoiler, they don't.
So Charles looks amazing too, and you forget, because we've seen him now for so long on the TNT halftime show. Just a big, overweight, kind of goofy dude who sounds a bit simple, but actually comes up with some gold. You forget he was such a stunning player, and he hit everything. Everything he took, he seemed to hit. He had great post moves, dunking it, throwing it down. He was an animal, and an underappreciated, undersized power forward. And you get to see just how dominant he was in his prime as well. And you get to see where he gets this attitude from when you see him taking golf shots nowadays. And you're like, hey, why are you so confident, eh?
Does he look like Zion? Like if you look at him and you go, oh yeah, that looks just like Zion, or like is he?
No, he looks
only because he's hulking.
Yeah, Zion looks huge. Charles doesn't look huge. Charles looks like a small, dynamic player, and he just looks so different to what you expect now, because you see him now. He's big. He can't hit a golf ball. I keep going back to the golf stuff because I always think that shows that's what we look at now and think, yeah, that's his athletic prowess. But it really does show on that. And I don't know whether this is the part where there's a tribute from Kobe and how much of an influence Kobe Michael Jordan had on Kobe's career, which was quite emotional and shortcoming. So, like I say, I've cheated. I've seen the entire thing, and I was trying to play the game, and I jumped ahead 2 episodes. So
it ruins it, though, eh?
It has ruined it. See, do you know what I watched last night, Nate? Because I won't have to watch.
Because you've used it up.
Yeah, because I've used it up. I ruined it all. I went and ate all. I'm a fat kid. I ate all my chocolate right on Easter, and now I don't have anything to. And I'm watching you guys all enjoying yourself as you eat it properly.
What'd you eat?
Last night I watched Finding Big Country. Have you seen that?
Finding Big Country.
What do you think that's about?
Like Bryant Big Country Reeves.
Yes. There's a documentary Finding Big Country.
The former concrete-footed centre with the awesome buzz cut for the Vancouver Grizzlies.
Yes. Because do you even know what happened to Bryant Reeves? Big Country?
Nah, he was really big.
He was big, he was huge, he got paid a max contract, and then he just disappeared off the face of the earth. When they moved it to Memphis, he played 2 exhibition games and then they cut him. And no one had heard from him since. Isn't it crazy?
And then they trade. What's it called? Finding Big Country.
Finding Big Country. Do you want me to ruin that for you as well?
No. Don't ruin it for me. Where's it on?
I can't tell you that website either.
Oh.
But it was a documentary made. I think it must have been two years ago. A young lady who had goals to become a college player and lived in watched the Grizzlies growing up. And she was just an absolute massive fan of the Grizzlies. Now I'm lost. They weren't the Memphis Grizzlies. They were I keep thinking Toronto Grizzlies, the Toronto Raptors. They were the Vancouver Grizzlies. That's right. So she was in Vancouver and she watched them for their 5-6 years there, 5-6 seasons. Yeah. And she loved them and was all into them. And she had Bryant Reed memorabilia and bought all the stuff. And she was only young. She would have been 5, 6, or 7. And she went with her brother and father and just loved it. Loved the NBA, loved everything about Bryant Reeves. And then she's determined. She grows up wanting to play ball. She goes to college. She doesn't make the college team. She gives up. So she says, I'm into filmmaking. And then she decides to try and hunt down Bryant Reeves. Big Country Bryant Reeves. And it's a crazy, crazy thing. And can I just say, without ruining too much, he is fucking lovely. And treats her so well. And it's just such a heartwarming we watch. So Finding Big Country when you're done with the Michael Jordan and you guys want to have a giggle at someone who was massive. And you're right, he was 7 foot. He had concrete feet.
Massive.
He had a sweet shot on him. He went to Oregon State University and tore it up there. He was from a really, really, really small town in America. Country boy. So Big Country was the absolute perfect nickname for him. And as quickly as he came into the league and got paid that max contract, his back seized up, a couple of discs went in his back, he had knee problems and just couldn't keep it up, gained a bit too much weight, and the injuries kept coming, and then just disappeared off the face of the earth once they moved it down to Memphis. The Grizzlies moved to Memphis. Oh, man. Really good watch. Yeah.
Okay. No, I've got that on my list. I did like Brian. There was something. Yeah, there was something quite lovable about him at the time because it just didn't look right for the NBA, even though he was 7 foot.
Yeah.
He kind of looked. He looked like an ice hockey player, even though he'd be like twice the size of everybody. It was just something.
He was slow.
About him. He was just monstrous. He was monstrous.
Yeah, he was big. He was slow. He was slow talking, but. Back in the day, like he was putting up big numbers against Shaquille O'Neal. He was putting up big numbers.
He was.
Like, he was actually in his prime. He did really, really well for a 7-footer.
Yeah. Hey, look at that guy.
Woo.
What about that guy right there?
Hey, you know when you walk into a room and you think someone's talking badly about you? I thought that's what you were talking about. Oh, he's big and slow. Maybe I've come in at the wrong time. Thanks, Mark. That's bloody nice of you, mate.
Oh, Sir John, I would never say that about you. Never.
How's it going, mate?
Good, man. Sorry I'm a little bit late, boys. I just did a bit of work for Breakdown and stuff, trying to keep the things rolling on. Oh, look at that. Tell you.
Yeah. All right. So what I was saying was, JK, thanks for coming on. So we've got this up and running now. We're doing that, and we're finding things out about people that we know, right? And I came up with this idea. I thought, what about it's your thing? Now, I know for you, like we could think about your rugby or your other work you've done, but I know from being around you, you've got a real thing for food, for wine, and also making the most amazing. I call them long meats, like those. What do you call them? Like a prosciutto.
Oh yeah, prosciuttos or speck. Yeah.
What's that amazing? What was that one you made? That awesome one you made. He bought one into Breakdown once, and I bought it home. Bresaola. Okay, tell us what
really
bresaola is. Go.
Really easy.
Describe this to Pied. Go.
Yeah.
Listen to this.
So basically, you go and you get just a nice big piece of meat. Take all the fat off it. Then you soak it in red wine, salt, red wine, juniper berries, rosemary, garlic, and you soak it for 5 days. Make sure it's drowned. Turn it a couple of times. Then you wrap it in linen cloth and hang it, and it comes out beautiful.
Who did that? Who thought to do that to begin with, though? Like, that's amazing. It sounds amazing. I can taste it.
Yeah.
It's right. Left it in a bath full of wine that they had just sitting there, and then, hang this up and dry it and see what happens to it.
Yeah, no, I'm really passionate about so I'm a butcher by trade. One of the reasons I fell in love with Italy was that, they really keep their old traditions. So when I first learnt to do curing of meat the old way, I'm in my mate's barn. His 95-year-old father's sitting in the corner, giving it to us. You young fellas, you don't know what you're doing. Too much salt. What are you doing? But he would walk into a room, right, and he would know whether it was the right temperature to get the mold on the salamis. And if it wasn't enough moisture, he'd throw a bit of water. And if it was too wet, he'd light a fire. And this would, this would come out 3 months later, just beautiful. And so I was always trying to learn these sort of tricks. And the bresaola one was just so easy. I thought it was going to be a lot harder. So you guys, honestly, should try it. You'll love it. And then you just slice it like a ham, and it stays in the fridge for it's one of those things where the kids go, I'm hungry, and you're done.
Yeah. Wow. JK bought some, and I nicked some off the plate, and I brought it home for Kelly, and then Kelly basically was going to make me drive all the way over to JK's house to hang around outside to see if there was any left. So talk us through that, mate. Something like you did when you went off to play at Treviso, right? So playing in New Zealand, and that was early days of, you'd hear about, the All Blacks will play here, and then they go up north, and then something happens, and then they come back and stuff. So Italy for you, was that a straight out home connection to go there in the first place, or did you go there and it became home?
Well, the 80s was what's Japan like now, right? Yeah. That was Italy in the 80s. So we used to get paid, and we were amateurs, right? So we'd go over and then we'd get the old sponduli. I remember the first time. So, it's like I'm walking to training in the car park in Italy, and this guy goes, "Oh!" And the first thing that you got to remember is they wave backwards. So instead of that means come here. Looking at this guy, says, vieni qua, come here. So I go over and he's sort of looking right and left and he opens the boot of his car. And he pulls out an envelope and it's got my month's pay in it. So there's all this cash stacked. I'm like, whoa, mate, that's good. But then he's got a big trout, a live sort of, well, just dead trout. And I'm going, what is that? And he said, here, pick it up. So I pick it up and I hold it, me and Craig Green, and he takes a photo. And he says, you now my marketing manager. that's how the Italians got around professionalism. Beautiful. I've still got the photo somewhere of me and Craig Green holding this bloody just dead trout. Marketing managers. Beautiful. He was one of the first guys to invent trout farming in the rivers outside Treviso. So he was in charge of us, because what happened back then was the rich guys would be part of the club, but like this rich guy, he had to pay us. So that's why the old
boot treatment. I love that though. That's exciting. That you're alive and someone's opening up a boot and handing you cash out the back of it. Yeah. Hey JK, for you,
it was only a trout.
Or dead.
Yeah, or dead. Yeah. Dead or alive. Your
choice. That call will end up in the boot of the car.
For your love, but the whole idea of the meat thing though. I mean, I love meat, but I haven't. It's not been a passion for me. When you say that you became interested in it, has it always been something like that, or did you have some spare time? You're like, fuck it, I want to learn how to do this, or how did that sort of grow into something that you're doing now?
My dad was a butcher, and his dad was, and so I was a butcher, and so for me, just understanding meats and understanding cultures. My dad said when you go overseas, there's two people you should get to know, and you'll always be okay: the fruit guy and the butcher. And that's what I've done all around the world, including like my best mates in Japan were the butcher and the fruit guy, because once you make friends with them. But I was also really interested in just tradition.
Yeah.
So especially pork, and it was a real important animal in the Italian life. So for example, we would go and would do the pig, very respectful. Would have the liver for breakfast. The mother would cook it, would have a glass of wine, would do all that, but then the next day we'd go to the neighbour's place. And they said this has been going on for thousands of years, and it's done in the winter because no one had fridges, right? So all this understanding of when you don't have a fridge, how do you keep meats? How do you do all that sort of stuff? So that really fascinated me, and whether, because we all get a bit scared now about, food security and all that sort of stuff. But these guys still do the stuff, the old way, and the taste is unbelievable.
Yeah, man. So what about moving into, so you jump in there. When did you get into, so JK14's your wine. Yeah. When did you get into that? Was that when you were in your coaching days or your playing days? Because this is off the website. Is this the vineyard?
Yeah, that's Valdobbiadene. If you ever get the chance to go by where I live, that's a place called Valdobbiadene. So only... there's 30k strip that if you like Prosecco like I do,
yes,
Prosecco comes from this region. Prosecco. This is the DOCG region. So you have DOC, Denominazione Originato Controllato, or Denominazione Originato Controllato Garantito. So the G on the end means it's guaranteed. So my friends live all through here, and when I say it's guaranteed, they have an association that comes and controls the grape from the vineyard, so right on the grape, right on the vine, right through to the bottling. So that's a DOCG, and it can only be, at least 90% Glera, which is the grape that you're seeing there. So I got really passionate about wine because I was brought up in Mangere, and we had meat and 3 vegetables every night of the week. Dad would come home and have either a whiskey or a Lion Red. Mum would have a glass of wine out of a cask. And I remember I got to Italy, and the first night, there was 15 courses with different wines and shit. And I'm going, oh man, I felt pretty good. They've turned this on for me. Nah, it was like that every night.
There's that weird,
a weird thing about not drinking a lot, but someone would come around with a bottle of wine and he'd tell me where he got it, and there was all this passion involved, and then he'd say, we've got to eat it with steak, and where'd you buy your steak? And I'm going, whoa, But it's just this whole cultural journey, and it's about spending time around the table together and loving just those little moments. So it's a real celebration. And I just fell in love with the celebration of food. So JK14's Wines was really my opportunity to just go and personally pick these wines for people. And it's about value for money. You know, I don't want people to think that, you know, oh, I'm paying too much for this. So I try and choose value for money in the sector. And I also like the wines to tell a story. Most of our wines are named after people we love and care about.
We had Robbie Farah with us on Friday night, and he spoke about going to Lebanon when he was picked to play league for them, and he'd never been there. But he said he got there and just felt like, oh man, this is home. You know, like I've learned so much from this from there. Well, did you get any feeling like that around like the Curtis? Didn't you have some family back through to Italy?
No, but I think no, I didn't. And
you didn't?
Really, I did. Like it's really interesting because where I live, there's a place called Motta de la Venza, and Motta de la Venza was a prisoner of war camp for Australian, New Zealanders, and South Africans during the Second World War. And a year before the end, the Italians decided not to fight anymore, and they just left the gates open. So a lot of New Zealanders went out into our region and hid. And there was a guy called Art Scott who actually coached Counties Manukau, and he stayed behind enemy lines, and he would take soldiers that were caught over the Dolomites. I mean, one night he went to a beach that we go to called Kauli, and he swam out with 12 people, put them on a submarine, and swam back and kept looking after.
Wow.
So there's this whole story. The Maori battalion has a beautiful story in the northern parts of Italy. Maori, for example, the Maori battalion spoke Italian in 2 weeks because the sentence structure and the vowels are exactly the same. A-E-I-O-U. I'll tell you a funny story. So we're up northern parts of Italy, me and Craig Green, 1989. We're walking around the supermarket, and Craig Green goes, "Okay, that's a Maori lady." I said, "Shut up, mate. We're in northern Italy. You kidding me?" "Mate, I'm telling you, that's a Maori lady." I said, "Okay. What we'll do is we'll walk around. We'll say kia ora." Because you know what kia ora is in Italian? What's the time?
Oh, you get an answer either way. We'll know by that.
So I said, well, we'll go round, and what will happen is we'll say kia ora, and she'll either say, oh, it's 2:30, or she'll say kia ora. So we go round, and we said kia ora, and she said kia ora, and she was, there was a big Maori community just by where we lived because they married the Italians that built the Kaimai tunnels.
Oh.
So, the tunnelers came down and they went up and they took, they married the local girls, and there was this beautiful community. So 2 weeks later we had all the Kiwis. We played an all Kiwis game. So there was 50 Kiwis, and we invited them down, and we put a hangi down, and we put a lamb on the spit, and there was a bit of an argument from the Italians because they reckoned knew how to put lamb on the spits, and we're going, nah. Out of the kitchen. It's our deal. You can do the pasta. We're doing the lamb on the spit.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Is that, how would you?
I just saw your mini helmets. I just wondered if you've
I love when
signed
people
by
think.
Brett Favre by any chance.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. That's a great souvenir.
No,
That's a good souvenir.
not even
I love
close.
them, mate. How cool are these things?
They're so cool.
Yeah.
Pied's running off to the back to get. Don't pull your wall down like last time. Okay, here you go. What do you got there?
Oh, look at
Oh,
that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That was from an op shop in
that's
Phoenix.
Look at that.
And every time that kid played, look, they get a sticker on the back for when you make it out on the field.
$2. Was it $2 or $3?
Yeah, it was $2. It was $2. And we bought it. We bought it, JK, about 2 days into our trip, and then it's like, oh, where the
carry
fuck
it
do I
round.
put this in my luggage.
But how fascinating, eh? For America, you go to an American op shop, and these are easy to pick up, like old high school helmets, old Pop Warner. They look so foreign to us. They're so awesome and huge.
Yeah.
But no, it's not signed by Brett Favre. So
No, it's not signed by
win.
Brett Favre. No,
You win. You win.
Hey, mate, what about that thing of how nervous have you ever cooked for your wife's family? And what level of nerve wracking would that be, man? Because Fiorella is obviously Italian. For people that don't know, so have you done that?
So my wife's Italian, and her dad is like unbelievably tough. So I'll tell you a couple of stories about him. My mother-in-law goes away for 4 days, and she gets back, and he has eaten there and left the plate, eaten there and left the plate, eaten over there and left the plate. So I'm there for the first day, right? And you know, I got brought up, 3 older sisters, you know, pull your weight, whoever cooks, do the dishes, all that sort of stuff. So they cooked this amazing meal. So at the end of it, I thought, oh, good on you, JK. I get up and I start picking up the plates. And he just gives me this. And I stopped mid-air and he said, hey, boy, you want to ruin 3,000 years of tradition? I don't know what to do. You know, it's like your worst ever moment. What am I going to do? Do I sit down? Do I put it down? Do I front? Like, what do you do? So I just sat down. Like, you know, my mother-in-law gets up in the morning and puts his pants, his underpants, his shirt, right? I said to him one day, would you like a coffee? No, I called him Nono Mario. Would like a coffee, Nono Mario? He said, yeah, but we're going to have to wait till my wife gets home. Like,
wow.
Imagine that happening in my house.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I can't imagine that.
It wouldn't happen here. Is that so? That's normal. That's a normal. Or that's kind of abnormal for even Italian terms.
No, that's pretty normal. Yeah,
wow.
No, that's pretty normal for that generation. You know,
yeah.
When I first went there in '86, I went to an old farm of the Francescatos, who were a famous rugby family, but also quite old school. The old man was old school. We had a dinner, and only men were allowed to sit at the dinner table. The women were in the kitchen. Like, and I'm going, hey, brothers, like, my sisters and my mum would have your head off by now.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just different. I mean, and it wasn't a chauvinistic thing. It was just the way it was done. I mean, you know, it wasn't, you know, anything sort of out of the norm for them, and I was just freaking out, you know.
Jacko, I really want to know how you would describe New Zealand's food as a tradition. So you do a beautiful job of describing how, like, the Italians take their time and they enjoy it. How, when they ask you what we are like with our food and what we're like with our traditions, how do you describe us?
It's a great question. So I think some of the things we're doing recently from a fusion point of view, so some of our great chefs like Ben Bailey and guys like that doing some amazing stuff with traditional food, our food. But really, I don't really have an argument with them, you know. I say, you know, you've got to taste lamb in New Zealand. You've got to, you know, try these things. But until recently, I couldn't really say to them, you've got to come and try this.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing that upsets me the most is, do we really have a traditional New Zealand restaurant to go to? Like, you know, if you said right now, right, I've got my Italian cousins coming down tomorrow, where would you take them? You know? That's
so true.
Yeah. We've got maybe the depot, you know, but after that, we're taking them to, you know, my great Italian or that sort of stuff. So I've always wondered, and also about great seafood. Like, when I go back to Italy, I go to great seafood restaurants that are dedicated to seafood, right? And here in New Zealand, we don't seem to have something that's like loud and proud New Zealand, you know, even if it was lamb on the spit in the middle of the restaurant or whatever. So it's a real hard one, but I think our food is amazing when it's cooked well. I do a lamb that I do in Italy when I'm trying to show off about how to cook New Zealand food. So I do a leg of lamb, but what I do is I get anchovies, rosemary, thyme, get the oil of the anchovies, and then I mash it all together with some sea salt, and then I massage the lamb, and then finish it with a bit of a massage of balsamic vinegar, and then you slow cook that. And that is sort of a combination of, don't tell people you put anchovies in it, because as soon as you tell them, ugh. But the anchovies accentuates the taste of the lamb, so that disappears, but it brings this beautiful accentuation of the lamb. So I'll often do that in Italy, you know, when I'm trying to show off.
Yeah, that's cool. And it sounds flash too. You add anchovies. That sounds like you're doing something flash. What would we?
Yeah,
What would
because you
our
got to talk shit. Otherwise, you got to have a good story over there, brother.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're dead.
yeah,
You know?
you'll have to- What is our national dish? What I mean, I know that our advantage is we have great meat. It tastes great because we have good farmers. We have good farmland. They have plenty of space. It's usually non-stressful time for the beef and the cattle. The cattle and the sheep. So we know we've got a good advantage in terms of making the meat, and we've got good produce. It all grows there. But what would we be? What would be our dish of choice? It would be lamb done with roasted.
I tell you, that's just reminded me. I tell you what the Italians do love when they come down here. So my brother-in-law's Samoan. They love chop suey, fried taro.
Yeah.
They
Really?
love it, mate. They can't get enough of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chop suey.
Which is chop suey, fried taro, potato salad. With the good mayonnaise.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, God.
The Cook Island
they
potato salad.
Yeah, the
they
Cook Island.
absolutely love it. But if they come down, if they come down here and I get them a really good leg of lamb, they've never tasted it. The Italians are scared of lamb because sometimes it's got quite a poignant smell to it.
Yes.
And that smell comes from when the lamb gets scared before it dies. So it has that adrenaline, which we don't do because we put our lambs in pens so they settle down a wee bit. So we don't have sometimes that really strong taste that they have over there.
Because I tried to cook lamb for the family I was living with in Canada, and it was that same thing. They were like, "Oh, Kiwi, can you broil it outside?" Like they couldn't handle me cooking it in the kitchen. They were like, "Nah, that smell is horrifying." And I remember thinking, "But it's lamb, and it's from New Zealand, and it's our dish. It's really nice if you get to know it." But it was bloody hard to get to. Hey, mate. No, sorry. You go ahead.
I was going to say I grew up on the farm, JK, and we had we had the dad's rule was once the lambs and the sheep were close to the cattle yards or to the yards where they were loading them on the stock trucks, the dogs were tied up. It was all done human hand. It was all the dogs would just spook them and stress them, so the dogs were all tied behind. So there was a strategy behind it. Now I understand that. Sorry, Nate.
Yeah, and that's why home kill's so beautiful, right?
Yeah,
because they just don't know it's coming, man.
Terrible.
I respect everyone. I think the vegan movement's fantastic, but I also think it's important that we get back to understanding how our animals are treated and where they come from. So I always say to people, it's important to talk to your butcher about where they're getting their meat and how the meat's being treated, because those things are really important. So that's what it's like in Italy as well. I can go to my local butcher and he's got a farmer up in the mountains that has a special type of goat, and so it's a real personal thing, and there needs to be a whole lot more care put back into that sort of stuff.
So true.
Hey, just to talk about Italy, mate. I mean, obviously we're all on here because the whole world shut down with COVID and stuff. Like, what do you know? Is everyone safe up there? And what stories have you heard out from around your region in Italy?
Well, my son's there, so
yeah, man.
Yeah, so he was sitting next to a guy who had COVID. So he was in Reggio Emilia, which is between Modena, where they make balsamic vinegar, and Bologna, which is you got to go there and eat. It's like special. But what happened was the epicenter of where it started was pretty close. So his teammate got COVID, and unfortunately this guy's grandmum passed away. But Nico has been in lockdown for 8 weeks now. So what happened was the manager rang him and said, "Mate, you can't come to training. We've got COVID in the team. You need to isolate for 14 days. And then they went into lockdown. But just recently, he got a permission from the police to travel back to our home in Treviso, which is just out of Venice. And there's a bit of lawn for him to run around. He was going a bit stir crazy in a very small apartment. But he's really well. He's just started to go and see his grandmother and grandfather who live 500 yards away. He went around and mowed their lawns yesterday and dropped off a cake for them. Still can't get close. But they're probably a little bit like us. I mean, they're 4 weeks further in and they're pretty much over it. But he's saying the 4th of May they're going to get back into some sort of resemblance. He doesn't think he'll play again, so he thinks the 3rd division will be cancelled.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to a lot of my other mates, my personal mates, and everyone feels as if they've been through the worst, and it looks like they could be coming out of it, and they need to get things restarted again from a business point of view.
Yeah, man. Oh, that's good to hear the Nico's okay, man. It's pretty scary watching all that happen when your kid's over there. Well, I mean, you and Farrell watching that news, that must have been horrible.
Yeah, it's actually been a really, really hard on my wife. So my mother-in-law is not too well at the moment, and normally when you cross-culturally marry, one of the most important things is that wherever you are in the world, you know you can go home tomorrow. So when I lived in Japan or I lived in Italy, I'd know that if I had to, I'd get on a plane, and that's very, that's very soothing and comforting. But right now, my wife can't get home to her mum and dad who are old and struggling a wee bit. So that's a bit tough. But hopefully, we're heading in the right direction, and she'll be able to get home maybe in July or August.
Well, your ears picked up when you heard that there was 0 new cases today? I know I did. I was like, yay! That's amazing. I never thought the day would come. Got kind of that mindset. So no, it feels like we're moving in the right direction. Hey JK, just 2 quick things before we do let you go. Usually we have Blake Ashford who co-hosts with us, and he is currently over with the Warriors in Tamworth, so he's working abroad. But when he knew that you were going to be on the show, he wanted to ask 2 questions. So if I may pass those on to you. One was, if someone comes up to you and says, "Hey John," do you say, "Excuse me, that is Sir John"? Are you that kind of person?
No, normally if they say John, I say, "What do you want?" Because
or Mr. Kirwan.
Yeah. So most people call me JK.
Right.
I'm really happy with that. I feel really honoured with my knighthood, but it sits uncomfortably at times. So I feel really honoured that people know me as JK. Only my wife, when she's not happy, calls me John. So if someone comes up to me and calls me John on the street, I'm going, "Oh, I'm in this room."
And second,
wait. There's got to be an ex teammate or something like that you make call you Sir John.
Yeah, sure.
Or one of the Wallabies. Was there an ex-Wallaby or something, or an England player? And he goes, "Hey John, Sir John, go on, save that." It's got to be one of them.
I've felt like it a couple of times when people get a little bit arrogant on it, like you bloody, you Antibians down there, So mate, yeah, but no, I've never pulled it out, eh?
No. And the other one was your dress sense, immaculate dress sense, especially out in the public eye, just always on point. Is it something you've always had, and you always been, I guess, fashion conscious, or is this something that has grown with age, or how would you describe your fashion?
To start, well, I went to Italy at an early age, at 20, and the first time I walked into the change room, they laughed at me. So that was a bit of a, and then I got all this beautiful free gear from Benetton, and I went back the next year and they wore it into the change room and went, "Mate, that was last year's fashion. What are you doing?" But actually, it's always been a deflection so people wouldn't ask me how I really was.
Wow.
So it started out as a bit of a, I'd wear hats and, I'd wear stuff that people would talk about, the hat, or, "God, you look like a dick, JK," or, so it was a little bit of a deflection, and then I just really, really enjoyed dressing up.
Yeah.
I love clothing. I think grooming from a man's point of view is really important. So, for me, I would use it as a bit of a start of a talking point, but really a deflection in the early days, and then it just sort of grew on me,
Oh, you do it well, man. Easily,
Yeah.
It's cool to have. And just quickly, did you know when I was a young fella, and I went underneath our wool shed in Gisborne, and I dug out lots and lots of sheep poos and sold it for $2 a bag. They were 25 kg bags that I would sell for $2 because it was my goal to buy a poster of you in the post shop, and it was $25. So it took me $25 for a poster of you, and then I brought it, and the week after they cut it price down to $5. They took $20 off it, and it was down to $5.
I reckon that's a parent conspiracy. That someone's done.
It was a life-size poster. It was worth it. It sat on my wall. It was one of the proudest things I ever had. I was like, yes, I brought that with hard-earned Sheep shit. That's what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
But no.
I hope you didn't do too many comparisons.
No, none at all.
Oh, he played like sheep shit.
How did you manage to, just before we go, did you manage to catch any of the, because I know that Sky replayed like Blood, Sweat and Touring and, you know, like your vids that you made back in your All Blacks days.
Awesome.
Did you catch them? Did you ever look at them? Or was it
No,
first time you'd seen them for ages?
I caught up with Ricardo and, you know, we were talking about just what an amazing experience we had because back then we spoke about how books were dying and that, you know, the video age was here. I mean, you know, VHS, we don't even have VHSs anymore. That's how old it was. And, you know, we made it on our credit card. So we just put our credit cards together and we made it. And, you know, it became the highest selling video in New Zealand and we made no money. So we were laughing about
How?
You know?
How did you make that?
Yeah. It was like, I don't know if you remember the Matthew Ridge documentary too. So I think my credit card was maxed out. So Ricardo had to put, you know, that sort of expense and going over and following Ridgie when he went to Manly on his credit card. So sometimes we just sort of make stuff and hope like hell that that would come out of it without losing any money. But it doesn't put yourself in a very good negotiating point of power when you've built it, paid for it out of your credit card, and the bank manager's ringing you and saying, "Mate, you got to pay this credit card off."
Like, yeah, sure. Yeah, there we go. Well, cheers, mate. Hey, look, thank you so much for your time tonight and for sharing and all that sort of stuff. And let's hope for some good news soon for Italy and a chance to either return back there or bring some loved ones here, mate.
Yeah, and just to you guys, I know you know your industry had some challenges pre-COVID, and now you guys are getting a bashing. You know, in the media, things are getting cut. It's a really tough time for a lot of us. So, you know, I just hope that out of the back of this, we start getting back to some pretty cool traditions of thinking global, but also staying home and looking after those around us. So, pleasure to be on.
Awesome.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers,
Thank you.
JK. All the best,
Guys,
mate.
take it easy.
Here we go. Righto. So there you are. So there's your one you got to go for. Brasilico. Honestly, it's one of the most incredible tasting things I've ever had in my life. So there you go. What do you just have to do? Do that. Soak it in wine.
Soak it in wine.
Salt it.
Throw it in a sack. Hang it up. Mate,
Hang it up.
so
Smoke
easy.
it. Dude, it's incredible, eh? And it's like,
what is it like? Is it like a salami, or does it come out like a long piece of?
It comes out
jerky?
like you know, like a loin roll.
Yeah.
And then just like so in JK's kitchen, you couldn't see it there in his office, but in his kitchen, he's got, you know, when you go to a deli in the supermarket, those big. So he's got one of those in his kitchen that he used to slice them to get them thin. So they come out of it. It kind of looks like, you know how when you buy ham at the deli.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Like shaved ham.
And it looks like shaved ham, but it's got like a brownie color around, or sort of the darker color around the outside, and then a lighter one in the middle where the pork is on the way through. But it's just a beautiful combination of smoke and salt and that gorgeous little bit of wine and all that sort of stuff as well. And I mean, I'm not a big wine guy, but I'm like, also incredible. Good.
Hey man, that was a great get. Thank you, Nate. I love JK, so I mean, don't spend as much time around him as you have, but he is, to me, is just awesome. An inspiration. Such a good speaker. He's had such a storied career and just such a good dude. And the way he talks about appreciating food, you know, instead of just digging into a Big Mac, like taking some time to think about how you want to prepare something or be passionate about the dish you're making. He's so right. We don't have a chain of restaurants around New Zealand that is, this is New Zealand, you've got to taste this.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, I think Pacifica in Napier was doing really well. I think that won best restaurant in the country, but I haven't really heard much else apart from that. But no, man, it's, you know, they always do that. They always say that thing, what is it, like, don't meet your heroes, and because they'll ruin or whatever. But man, like, you know, I'm 47. JK was everyone's hero, you know, when I was at school, and it was turned out to be just as great as you always hoped. Just
really quickly, hi Dion Butler. Sorry we didn't get to everyone's messages. Hi Dion Butler. Literally my childhood watching this legend share the Italians on the field. Mark Stafford, just FYI, Sir JK makes the best coffee ever. Aidan, always appreciate your support, Aidan. If JK could invite 3 people to join him for a meal, who would he choose, do you reckon?
Probably me.
Christopher Reeve enjoys the idea. JK flexing all over Mark with his Packers helmet. Very true, Chris. Very true.
That was a goodie, eh?
And Sam Murray, always appreciate you watching, brother. Were you guys getting bashed? Oh, there were stories written about
no,
that.
he just meant we're just losing jobs.
Yeah.
That's all right, don't worry about it. Anyway, that's all.
That's all us.
Catch you back tomorrow.
Ka kite anō.
00. Go 00.